Welcome back, folks, to the Membership Machine Show. It's our first show for the new year, 2024. May I wish you a happy new year. I've got a special guest. He's a semi-regular, but it's always great having Kirk on the show. And in this particular show, we're going to be talking about how do you build a successful online course that people really want to buy in 2024. It's a slightly important subject. I think we've got some great broad insights. What we're going to be doing in the first half of the show is that we're going to be discussing the key elements that you've got to understand based on our experience. And then in the second part of the show, we're going to be discussing some of the platforms that you can utilize to build a membership business based on the principles that we outline in the first part of the show. I think that's reasonably logical and you should get some great value. So, Kurt, would you like to introduce yourself to the new listeners and viewers?
Sure thing, Jonathan. My name is Kurt Von Annen. I own a company called Mañana No Mas. I also have a podcast by the same name. Our agency focuses on learning and membership websites, and I work directly with great companies like Lifter LMS and WP-Tonic here.
That's great. And before we go into the meat and potatoes of this great show, we've got a couple of messages from our major sponsors. We will be back in a few moments, folks.
This podcast episode is brought to you by Lifter LMS, the leading learning management system solution for WordPress. If you or your client are creating any kind of online course, training-based membership website, or any type of e-learning project, Lifter LMS is the most secure, stable, well-supported solution on the market. Go to lifterlms.com and save 20% at checkout with coupon code podcast20. That's podcast20. Enjoy the rest of your show.
We're coming back, folks. I also want to point out we've got a special sponsor for January, and that's Cloudways. Cloudways provides hosting, cloud-based hosting. They're a reputable provider. Go and have a look at what they've got to offer. They also, in the show notes, which you will find on the WP-Tonic website, they're offering a special deal, and all the information will be in the show notes. So let's go straight into it. So I think one of the things, Kurt, that people struggle with is that they want to offer a course for the biggest audience possible, and there's going to be a qualifier to what I say about this because it's linked to point 2. But apart from your initial starter course, which, like I say, we're going to discuss in point 2, I think your main course, I think you want to actually interview people, or you want to have an assessment process, because having everybody enter your course can cause problems in that they're not suitable to really benefit from what you're offering. What's your own thoughts about all this?
Well, you do want to, I'm trying to think of like digital marketing terms, right? People say you need to identify your avatar. You need to, market specifically to who your target audience is. And you're right. You don't want to sell something on false pretenses to an audience that won't find value in the content. So you want to make sure that it is, derived for a specific group of people. But then I think there's so many other layers that become part of this conversation. And that is my project selling a course? Like, did I develop this website to sell a course? Or am I more focused on a series of courses and a possible membership kind of idea? And I think that opens up kind of like different layers of your approach.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I want to quantify what I've just said. I think it really is dependent on the price point and the outcome. I think a lot of people see value when they're building a course around volume. We provide so many lessons and so much information where it should be focused on outcome.
Yep.
Outcome and what benefit financially, time-wise, what outcomes do the students get from going through the course? Now, if the course is going to help them generate tens of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars, that because what I'm really trying to focus here, Kurt, is the value proposition, which should be linked to the price of the course.
Yeah.
If it's a course that is being offered below $50, it can have value. It's a quick introduction, it's a quick 101, or it's just focus on a very specific outcome. But if we're talking about the higher levels, the 2,000s, the 5,000s, the $10,000 courses, I think when you're talking about the higher level, where there's going to be a lot more touch personalization and touch points, either through group counseling, coaching, or one-to-one coaching, with it could be even an element of physical meetup element to it, which you get all these options in the higher end. When you're talking about that level, I think having qualification check, i.e. through questionnaire, through one-to-one interviewing, to make sure the individual, because soon as it's a bit like any kind of project, if you're building a website out, as soon as you take somebody's money, you're expected that they're going to get the outcome. And it can, allowing the wrong people into these higher levels can be very corrosive to the progress of your business. Have I explained that a bit better, Kurt?
Yeah. And I agree with you on that topic. If you don't have the right blend of users in your environment, it's that bad apple in the basket thing. That negativity can spread and can damage, your branding, your name, your future sales, all of that. So yeah, having a way to pre-qualify people, whether through form or through a sample quiz or something like that, is a really good angle to go.
Yeah. On to the second point, so that was qualifying possible membership. And I think that is dependent on the price point of your course, right? And the outcome that you're offering at the of the course, so there are variables there, folks. So let's go to point 2.
I want to jump in on something. I want to make sure that we describe this well enough for listeners, because I think this is something that gets missed a lot, Jonathan, and you've nailed it, but I want to make sure it's really clear. When you say the outcome, for instance, let's take the Power Sport Academy thing. Mm-hmm. For 2 years, I was like, we'll raise your parts and labor data, we'll raise your income, we'll do this, we'll do that. And all that time, it was basically selling on the vitamin prospect that we've spoke on lots of times. And then over time, I realized that wasn't what was going to get people to want to take the course. That wasn't what was going to get, my avatar to make the purchase. It really came down to, hey, if you own a motorcycle dealership and customers are calling your cell phone to complain about your service department, I can make those phone calls stop. That was the result. The result of the training was that pain point, not necessarily not like this lesson does this and this lesson does that and all those benefits and features. That is, a lot of people that are making the purchase decision don't care about the benefits and features. They want to know, what painful item are you going to take out of my life if I put people in this course? And that's, really selling to that point, I think, is what's going to help people drive more success.
Yeah, I totally agree. On to validation. That is down to my concept, which I totally admit I borrowed totally from the startup community, and Rob Rowling. He does a great podcast, which I think if you're looking to build a membership business, folks, his podcast, Startups for the Rest of Us, is aimed at startups. But I think you would get some benefit by listening, because a lot of the concepts of a startup business you can apply to building a membership website, in my opinion. And they've got this concept in the startup world, and Rob pushes it quite a bit, and I think he's correct, of a minimum viable product. Well, I think you should be looking at building a minimum viable course, especially if it's your initial dive into this world. And obviously, it can't be too minimal. What I mean by that, it has to get a clear benefit. I think dealing with the painkiller is easier to get a focus on than the vitamin myself. So look at building a minimum viable course, not what I call a war and peace course. I think you can do that for the next course. And the benefit you get from this is you're more focused, you'll get it out and get feedback. And you need those students, those first batch of students to come through the course, so you can tweak and adjust so they do get an outcome, they do get some benefit. Because I am going to tell you that the bits that you think they're going to rave about, they're not. And the bits you think they're not going to rave about, they are going to hopefully rave about. I also put this to you, I think this minimum viable course, you can either utilize, do some additional videos and put them on YouTube, and then feed them, or you can I'm a great believer of putting your first course on Udemy and at a low ticket price, just to get feedback. But you can do either. The Udemy thing is you're utilizing their marketplace just to generate. But probably you want to do that maybe at a later stage, because you might be better. I'll be interested in your feedback, because if it's your first one, put it on Udemy. You're really, depending on the subject, and you need to find your niche, especially if you're going to put something on Udemy. But it's going to be pushed to a large audience, so maybe you need that initial feedback and tweak it, and then you can decide to utilize it on Udemy as a feeder into a larger course offering you're going to offer on the subject. Is this making sense? And what's your own thoughts about this, Kurt?
No, it makes sense. And I think of this in terms of like lead magnets. So at first you were talking like, validation, but it's got to be substantial enough to provide a value, right? So if you have like a white paper is not a sample course. A white paper is a lead magnet, right? That leads someone to a sample course. But then having something substantial, as in a 5 to 6 lesson, short course, that's a great sample. And to your point, you could put that on Udemy and then use their marketplace to drive traffic to it. And when someone gets to that last lesson, you're like, if you enjoyed this, if you enjoyed this sample course, we have a full course or an expanded course or a more detailed course, at this resource. And that's how you get that traffic over to your property.
Or because they won't share their email list with you. That's the main problem with it. But you just got to treat it as a way of getting your name out, because they've got a big audience. And if you've got you've got to look at the offerings out there. If you can find a micro niche or a niche, I think you're, it's a inexpensive start course, and at the end of it you can offer a freebie. Go to my website, and as a sign of us rejoicing together that you're end of my course, I'm offering you a freebie. Just go here and sign up and get this freebie, and then you're on they're on your email list, and then you can then introduce them to a larger course, or ask them to, get them to prepay to help you finance the course that you're building out about the subject. There's loads of ways of doing this. I just think it's excellent. What if you use Udemy, or you can use YouTube in a similar way. Both work, I think, but utilize that initial course to clarify that you are solving a problem, and you will have to tweak the course a bit. The businesses I've started, they've always been a windy river journey. The things that I thought people were going to rave about, they haven't. I've dropped them, and I've just learned from people and listen a bit. You should be listening a lot to your initial students and try and get them to give you feedback, because it's really important, folks. On to point 3, transformation. Your minimum viable course, if you're at the starter, or let's say your next step, which is your bigger course, this is where I'm not a great believer in volume just for the sake of volume. It's about, let's say you're on your second course, you've done this minimum viable course, then you've put it onto Udemy, or you're breaking it up you're offering it as a lower price lead magnet, and you're utilizing some of it on YouTube to generate leads. Those first batch of students, and it should be that feedback should be utilized, that your next course, you're actually getting the outcomes from the people. That you can't guarantee anything to anybody. They've got to watch the videos, they've got to do the quizzes, they've got to concentrate on what and they've got to put effort in. It doesn't just happen out of magic. But if you've got a normal student and they're doing the things that are expected of them, they should get outcomes. Outcomes aren't about volume of the course. They're about somebody thinking about it and laying out their course structure. So if they follow it, they're going to get some of the hopeful outcomes. What's your own views about this, Kurt?
I have a lot of views, actually, Jonathan. I considered myself a voracious reader, and I compare this idea to books and writing books. I am more of a bullet point kind of communicator. I'm very direct in my communication, especially when I write. And so I'm a big fan of John Maxwell. I read a lot of John Maxwell books, but in reality, it's like there's this much that's actionable for me, and there's this much of fluff in those books, because he talks about his previous experiences and his stories and his this and his that and someone else and John Wooden and all these things. And then when I write and publish a book, it ends up being like this pamphlet. And I'm like, is that enough? And I have to remind myself that it is enough, because the content's there. The content, the ideas, because the strategies are contained. Those books that I've written aren't books for entertainment's sake. They're there for educational sake. And I would, as a learner, I would rather get the information up front than mixed in with a bunch of fluff. And so, as you make those transformations in your site and in your offerings, you have to consider your communication style and the desired outcome and the communication style of your membership or your audience.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. It's a mixture, but do remember, Kurt, that there's a lot of people, there's a lot of fluff there, but there's also parable is powerful. You know, some of the master teachers use parables to show as an introduction to more detailed information. So I think, but I do understand where you're coming from, because there is a lot of fluff out there.
Yeah, and it's not, don't add it just for the sake of volume, like Jonathan said. Make sure that there's a link, the value to the content, or that the ideas translate or transmit well with the content. And you'll know that when you get the feedback from the students. That's why that feedback loop is so important.
Yep. Proof. Well, it's linked to qualifying possible membership if you're on that second course or on that third course. I know you're thinking, oh, I want success on the first course, folks. Sometimes it happens, but it's normally a gradual build up over. You know, that's why you don't want to spend too much time on the first course. No, do not spend a year building out some War and Peace course, folks.
3 months.
3 months to get this first course out, and then maybe the second course 6 months, and maybe your big high purchase price course, you know, bit more than 6 to 8, you know, but you should be working on it at the same time a bit as you're working on the middle course. So and then I think you would have a good spread of offerings to people at different stages of their journey, depending on your experience level. I think that's a good mixture: beginner, intermediate, advanced. But unless you're doing these things, you're not going to get proof. And what proof is getting those testimonials, getting those video testimonials. You know, you should have an onboarding process, and you should have an offboarding process. And that offboarding process is, if somebody's completed the course, they're not normally in the frame of mind. If they've got some value, they're very happy to have a offboarding chat with you on Zoom. And you should record that. And at the end of it, you should ask them, is it okay that you can give us some feedback about how you found the course? And that can be your video testimonials. They're very important, that they're placed on your website, and they're utilized for social media, because they're, you know, it's great talking about you. It's great talking about how great WP-Tonic hosting is. It's great. Kurt talks about his power course, which is fantastic. It's great that we talk. It's much more powerful when other people say, well, WP-Tonic's a great service and it's great hosting, and they go the extra mile for us. Or people that's gone through Kirk's power course say, well, it was a changer in the whole way that I saw about running our maintenance department, and it really changed the outlook. It's much more powerful that other people say those things that we say it. What do you reckon, Kurt?
Yeah, that third-party edification thing is gold. It is absolute gold. And whenever you can get that, it's worth everything. And, you know, ironically, it's one of the things I hate asking for.
Yeah, I'm useless at it.
You know, hey, well, I got you. Could you have a couple of nice words you could say about blah, blah, blah. But you got to do it, and you got to capture it. And then you have to, you know, use it. You have to reuse it.
Yeah, but that's why I think it's really good to have offboarding process. You don't see it. A lot of people don't do this, folks. I'm not suggesting you should do it with your initial course, or maybe you should. Well, yeah, you should actually. I'm totally wrong there. What was I thinking, Jonathan? Because that offboarding, you're going to give you opportunity to get a lot of feedback about the next course. Here's a little bit early for me, folks.
Well, let's be fair with folks. It doesn't have to be a Zoom call with every user when they finish. what's a really good tactic for this is, for instance, if you're using Lifter LMS, you would just add a quiz to the last lesson, and that quiz would really be a survey. What did you think of the course? ABC, 1, 2, 3, 1 through 5, 1 through 10, whatever. Ask a couple of scaled questions. And then if they score really high, if they give you a 9 or a 10 out of 10, that's when you send them the personal email that says, hey, thank you so much for your positive survey results. Would you be up for a quick Zoom call and a possible testimonial? And then boom, you've got it.
Yeah, great. Scalability. Well, that's why I'm saying, everybody thinks, oh, my first, which, like I say, back to the same thing, should be a minimum viable course. Oh, it's going to be a huge success and blah, blah. If you got injured, you probably wouldn't cope with it anyway. You're probably doing this and you've got a full-time job, which is the great thing of doing this, folks. It's a totally plausible to gradually build up a business that can be a real great second income. Or if you're in that mind, you might be getting close to retirement, and this could be a lot of people, they do not deal with retirement that well because they've got too much time on their hands, and this can be a great contribution. Or if you're really not liking what you're doing at the present moment, it's a legitimate way you can build up something to escape and have a different pathway. But the idea, you've got to have a process that's scalable, especially that, if you're dealing with the lower ticket price courses, it's not quite such a problem. If they're getting an outcome, if they're not, or if it's not well-structured course, you're going to get a load of support tickets, right? But when you get into the medium to higher price levels, which are more profitable, just be frank about it, folks, well, they should be. If you don't have processes, onboarding, and work out the flow, it won't be scalable. And you also got to work out what you're offering, because you can't, if you get 100 people in your course and they're active, you can't offer them all one-to-one coaching. It's not sustainable. What do you reckon about this, Kurt?
You're all right on the money with all of that, Jonathan. It's you've got to have a process. You've got to, and you'll grow that as you dive into it, right? So you'll start to recognize things that you do on a repetitive basis. And when you find yourself doing the same thing 3 times, 4 times, it's really worth the effort to, write a note or write up a process or a procedure for what you're doing. Down the road, people say, well, Kurt, how did you grow your membership and learning, agency? Well, I was full-time employed before, Jonathan, but I don't know anything about baseball or football, right? So my time went into doing this, and now I do it full-time and I love it. But it's over those years, I put everything to a process, and I actually created tutorials so that when I delegate or hire contractors to do stuff for me, I can instantly train them on what they need to do, rather than like that hard part of training new employees all the time, but it's because it's to a process and it's scalable, it works really well.
Yeah. And last thing, do not inflate your course outcome claims. This is a difficult one. Unfortunately, there is a group of people, and there's some people that kind of join this, and they inflate the outcomes enormously. It's a balance, folks, because obviously you got to market, why outcomes, in your communication's got to be clear, and it will get better as you re-look at it and you get the feedback from the students. But on the other hand, don't take it too far, so it's ridiculous claims either. What do you reckon, Kurt?
I make fun of these all the time, and you can look at people that appear to be very high in the online training or event training space. But when you really analyze their business model is land and expand. It's always preparing the audience for the next purchase. It's I hate to say it, but it's like the medical industry, right? The medical industry doesn't get rich by making people well. It gets rich because they always find something else to sell them to keep them sick. It's like that with with that level. So you don't want to, like Jonathan says, overpromise the outcomes. You want to be super realistic. You want to build a sense of integrity and really good core messaging in your products and in your deliverables, and that's what will lead to that expansion.
Well, I think
constantly let people down, but then try to sell them the next thing for what you missed the first time. That picks up. People sense that.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the medical industry, I think the reality is the biggest problem in American society is obesity and overweight and a non-active lifestyle, and the consequences to that, which is a multiple facet. It's diet, it's exercise. I'm noticing Americans, and unfortunately British society's gone the same way, is there's a vast group of people that don't monitor the diet and don't do a reasonable amount of exercise. And then you have these, I call them the California lot, that kind of run 20 miles a day and stick insects, and they do marathons, and they're super fit, where and the consequences of this, folks, is you've got a population that gets diabetes, and when you go down the road of type 2 diabetes, it's a very dark road, and it leads to a lot of medical. And then, so I'm going off a bit, but it's a balance. Drugs do work. They normally have, if they do work, they're going to have side effects. So you don't want to be on them. But what's happening, folks, is a lot of drugs become, and sometimes you do have to take drugs because you have a condition, but it's preferable that a lot of drugs now are utilized to mask a lifestyle problem, the consequences of poor diet and no exercise. So that's my preaching finished. Sorry about that, listeners and viewers. We're going to go for a break, and in the second half, we're going to be talking about some of the platforms that can enable you to do the things that we've outlined in the first part of the show, which I've enjoyed, and hopefully you got some benefit from. We will be back in a few moments, folks.
Tired of hosting providers that can't handle high traffic loads? Conversio is here to help. Our platform can handle any amount of traffic, all without slowing down or crashing. With immediate Slack support, performance optimization, and a team that thrives on resolving technical challenges, your e-commerce business is in safe hands. Learn more about Conversio at conversio.com.
We're coming back, folks. We've had a feast about the things you got to know and the advice we're given. I think Kurt did a great job. I think I just waffled myself. I think it was a John Maxwell book, a verbal one. He's not saying anything. I'll give you every opportunity. I do.
I am enjoying this quite a bit.
Yeah. I just want to point out we've got a Facebook group, the WP-Tonic and the Membership Machine Show Facebook group. Do have a look. It'll be in the show notes on the website as well. Why don't you join it? It's a mixture of WordPress people and people trying to build a membership website. We'd love you to join us on there. On to the second part of the show. So platforms, SaaS or WordPress. Let's start off with Kajabi. like I say, Kajabi is one of the main players in the SaaS offering. You know, SaaS, it's all integrated in one Swiss Army knife. I think if you're committed to the SaaS solution, I think you could do a lot worse than Kajabi. I wouldn't say the interface is that as simple as their marketing says, but it depends on how much experience you have connected to online marketing, cloud-based platforms you are. And it has its limitations about how you can build out your website, limitations about the email marketing you can do. But it's a Swiss Army knife solutions, and all those type of solutions, you're doing a deal with the devil, because to make it reasonably usable for the beginner, for the person on the journey, it needs to have some restrictions that will make it usable. Is this making sense? And do you think I've been fair about what I've just said, Kurt?
I think you're being more than fair where Kajabi is concerned. It is the elephant in the room from a SaaS perspective. It's one of the most popular. I've got a lot of peers that use Kajabi, and so I've had some firsthand experience with working at the back end of it. And I'll probably be a little more critical than you, Jonathan. It's not a what you see is what you get interface. It's not horribly intuitive, and there's a learning curve to it. You know, it's like those Squarespace ads that talk about, you know, got a business, kapow, you've got a business online. And it's like, no, it's not that easy. Everything has a learning curve. I will say that the tools they include are fairly comprehensive. So you don't have to go and plug this, plug that, plug the other. Everything's kind of right there, but it's not a what you see is what you get kind of thing on the back end. However, just to clarify, I think the front end product is pretty attractive. I think the website that you create through them and what you offer your students is enjoyable. But I think the back end is a little clumsy and hard to navigate and figure out sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's of the SaaS platforms. It's definitely the gorilla. Yeah, it starts off. These are the monthly prices, folks. Starts at 149, then 199, and 399. And it does provide like email, and it does provide video hosting. There are limits, but there are limits on all the plans that we're going to be discussing, all solutions. That would be a better term. And you do have to look at the solutions, their limits. Onto the thing that we champion at WP-Tonic is WordPress. And there's WordPress. There's the WordPress hosting that we provide at WP-Tonic, and we set the hosting, and we white glove on board you, and we're there in the background, and we're helpful. But we provide the hosting, and then we provide what the leading plugins, which we see as the key Lego bricks that enable you to build this. And plus the email, and basically we set everything up so you get the equivalent of Kajabi to some extent at a much cheaper price. But the main Lego brick is Lifter LMS, which is a great learning management system, and it offers an enormous amount of functionality in a really quite attractive interface. And we provide their top package, so you get everything at Lifter. And if you're starting on this journey, I think Lifter offers the least friction-free ability to get that initial minimum viable course up, and then to actually build your website and have, you know, the home page, the About Us, and also help you build all the additional pages. we use Cadence WP, which is based on Gutenberg technology, which enables you to really build a website really quickly. We provide a custom library of starter themes based on Cadence, and it's super quick. And I think to get the site looking the way you want, utilizing one of our starter Cadence themes is super easy. I've been doing a few websites just to get me up to speed with everything and loved it. And then one of our other main Lego blocks is Fluent CRM. That enables you to do the email marketing, the marketing automation. And it's, in my opinion, more powerful than something like ActiveCampaign, which ActiveCampaign is seen as the gold standard in email marketing and marketing automation. And we all offer that in one very attractive price. What do you reckon, Kurt?
Well, I reckon you covered most of it, except for the idea that makes it so much better than Kajabi from the perspective that it's completely customizable. We give people a great platform to get started on with the starter templates, and you want something up in a couple of days and you want to change out your text and images and have a minimal viable product to put out, you can do that. But with WordPress, you get that incredible flexibility where, let's say a year down the road, you've done the proof, you've done the scaling, you've done the stuff we discussed in the first half of the show, and now you want to hold live events. Well, you can put an event tool into your site. If you want to schedule live meetings, we've got tools we can put in there so you can schedule live meetings. You can integrate with, streaming video tools. There's the idea that it's not limited in its capability is what I find so attractive. And of course, the cost entry point.
Yeah, I think you put it, because there's nothing worse, folks, that being on a cloud hosting platform and you're into your second course or you're starting your third course and you've got all this feedback to student, and there's some functionality, something you need that your students are really looking for, and you can't do it on the SaaS hosted platform. They're not going to provide it, and you're stuck. And then you got to move all your courses somewhere else, probably to WordPress. That's painful.
The worst ones that I see are the people that get in a hurry, Jonathan, and they don't migrate to WordPress. So what they do is they link to some other third-party platform, whether that be, a Circle, Mighty Networks, or whatever, right? So they'll link to something else, and now they've got this weird, fragmented Frankenstein thing where they're sending users to 2 or 3 different properties, and they lose the experience, they lose the relationship with their users, and the whole thing begins to crash in on itself like a house of cards.
Yeah. And also you get digital ownership, digital sovereignty, as I like to put it. I think being able to do the design and whatever you need and have it future proof are the main benefits, but also digital sovereignty and having the much ownership of something you spent a lot of time and effort building is another benefit. On to another SaaS competitor, which I think is one of the main competitors to Kajabi, but they have recently changed their pricing structure, which makes them a lot less attractive, in my opinion, in some ways. And that's, I always pronounce it incorrectly, Poda. How do you pronounce it? Podia? Yeah. Great people do a lot of online marketing, really good at it as well. And it was always their offering was very similar to Kajabi. It was a little bit less feature rich, but it was a bit simpler to get up and running, but it was a bit more limited, or you had to if you were looking at certain functionality like video, like marketing automation, you had to add a third-party solution to it. It wasn't such a broad Swiss Army knife solution, but it was simpler to set up than Kajabi, and they're great people, and it was good value. In some ways, they've lowered the pricing. So I'm going to say to you, their starter starts at $9, and you think, oh, $9. But the problem is they've added, and I hate this, is they've added every transaction, which if you're doing it through Stripe, Stripe was going to want their 2.9 cut. Well, Podio now, if you start at the starter plan, they want 8% as well. I don't like that. And then the next one, which was 39, their mover. So it's 39.5. Don't know what the 0.5 is about. They want 5%. You've got to go up to their shaker, which is 89, before they don't want to cut. I'm not a great supporter of this type of pricing. What's your own thoughts about this, Kurt?
I understand why they do it, and I understand why some people are attracted to it, but I don't like the model. I really don't. I don't like restrictions. I really don't enjoy when you read the details and it says, you know, up to this many products, up to that many products. And it's like, well, what do products have to do with the hosting or bandwidth on my site? Because I don't know what the traffic is to it yet, you know? Just some of the things that they point out in their details are, I think they're unnecessary restrictions that are a yellow flag to me that tell me I don't want to be there.
Yeah. So on to another one, Teachable. Teachable's kind of big player with, it's a more cut down. I prefer, if you're going to go that route, I would either look at Kajabi, but Teachable, they put the prices up quite a bit. So it starts at $59, and they've got a 5% transaction fee, and then you've got to go up to Pro, which is $159 for 0 transactions, and then they've got a Pro Plus at $249. Got to be honest, if you're going to go down this route, I look at Kajabi myself rather than Teachable at these prices and that. What's your own views about that?
I've recently had some Teachable people come over to WordPress, and it was...
They've seen the light. They've seen the light, have they?
And it's been directly related to the price increases and the changes in what's offered. Originally, I think, because, you know, it's if we look at the short history of e-learning as it's expanded from corporate use to, you know, more freelancer, more general usage, it was one of the originals. I mean, Teachable, the name's been around. It's been popular for a long time. And I think they finally said, oh, well, if Kajabi's going to charge this much, we can tweak our offer. But I think when they did that, they didn't have...
Well, I think it was also they were burning through, that it was VC backed, and they were burning through their...
Burning through the money.
Yeah, their runway, as it's called in the startup world.
Well, I know that people haven't been happy with some of the recent changes, and I've thankfully seen some work from it. So
that's great. On to the next one, Mighty Networks. I actually think Mighty Networks has become the main platform to, if you're looking at a SaaS platform, Mighty Networks or Kajabi, really. Mighty Networks, a lot of people look at the app. I think the app side of it's a total red herring for a lot of people until they get a mature course. I think a lot of people get fixated about the app side of it. I think a fully responsive modern website with some tweaks can meet most of your students' requirements if they're on a phone on your course. So I think it's, but as the pricing, I think it is not as I don't think it's as a broad solution as a Swiss Army knife as Kajabi, but it's a mature platform. They've been around longer than actually Kajabi, but both have been around a while. And their pricing is $39 119, and then the Pro is price on request. So that means they're going to empty your bank account. That's when they pop the champagne bottle as you make the sales calls for the request for the Pro version. So that's enterprise level basically. But for $39, but it has, I think the page builder and some of the marketing tools, in my opinion, aren't as good as Kajabi, but it's that it starts off at a cheaper price, and none of these transactional fees, they haven't gone down that route yet. What's your own view on Mighty Networks?
Similar to you, I do like the fact that they don't have the transaction fees and those kinds of things. And I don't know if you've noticed this or if it's, slapped you in the face the way it slapped me, but Mighty Networks, their product, their forward-facing product to me, it looks and it feels and it operates like a Buddy Boss site.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many similarities to its structure, its appearance, its icons, its menu layout.
Well, you just sorry to interrupt, but you've just pointed out something that I really needed. I've been laxed. I apologise to the audience. I'm not doing too well this morning. I slept quite well last night. Don't know what it's about. I haven't had my 15 cups of coffee this morning. This is the problem. Yes. Kirk's just pointed out something I didn't point out. I was, the problem. The thing is, the definite reason, unless you understand this, folks, why you shouldn't utilise Mighty Networks, well, is that it's set up to build a community. So it has all these features, and it's not worth delving into it if you're not going to do a community. And you definitely don't want to go down the community route until you've done your minimum viable course and you're well into your second course. And probably you shouldn't look at it until you're doing your third course, or you've got a big following out there anyway. But I'm not even sure you should do it then, because running a community is great. But as a single entrepreneur, and this podcast is aimed at the entrepreneur or couple or small team, running a big community on your own is a full-time job, folks. Plus developing your courses, dealing with the business administration, and also being the main administrator of a reasonably large community. It's a full-time job, in my opinion, or it's a full-time job plus half of somebody else. What do you reckon, Kurt?
I agree. And I know that we offer Buddy Boss as part of the WP-Tonic platform.
Yeah,
I love the folks at Buddy Boss. I use Buddy Boss on some of my projects. But when I consult with clients or when I'm talking to new folks, I'm very clear that you want to have your minimal viable product, your proof of concept done, and you want to be growing an active audience before you integrate social. Social is one of those tools that could be a great announcement down the road of, hey, we've added a new feature, blah, blah, blah. It's a great newsletter. It's a great PR cast, after you've grown an audience. But if you launch the social too early, it can just become this dead weight that sits on your website and just doesn't have a life.
And don't get me wrong, folks, building community at the right stage is a great way of adding value and community and having evangelists that really talk about it. It has enormous benefits. Don't get me wrong, folks, but at the right stage, folks. But the great beauty of Lifter LMS is they've got a great add-on, which we provide because we provide the Infinity bundle on all plans. Yeah. And that's so, what's it called again? I always forget. The
social learning.
It's a great middle road, I think.
Oh, it's fantastic. I use it all the time.
Yeah, it's a great middle road because people tend to underestimate the time. It's the time factor, folks. You also, if you get a few people, Buddy Boss is fantastic, folks, and so is Mighty Networks. I think but it's a time suck. You've got to be at the right stage, so that time commitment is worth the investment, basically, in my opinion. But you might have different. So Simplero, this came on my radar. I've done a review on it recently on the blog section of the WP-Tonic website, and you want to go there just for the blog section to say we publish a ton of content on the WP vid, and you want to join the WP-Tonic YouTube channel because we have a load of educational material on there. That's all free, folks, and plus the blog is totally free as well. But Simplero came on my I haven't used it in anger, and I haven't. They don't have a free account. I think they provide a 14-day. I should give it a spin maybe, but starts at 70. The starter starts at 70.80. I don't know what the 80 is about, and then the skill is 178.80, and Skyrocket is 298.80. So their first two, their first plan is a bit cheaper than Kajabi, and a little bit cheaper the second plan, not a much, but it's more the starter plan at 70. Seem to offer a lot of what Kajabi. Some people said the web build and just the back end is simpler to use than Kajabi. I haven't tried it yet. I'm just going by other people's reviews and the study that I did. That's just about it. What you got any knowledge about it? Because it came on my radar a couple of months ago, basically.
There's two things about Simplero that jumped off the page for me. One was they seem to push their AI tool, their AI capability through their pricing structure. So I'm not sure how much AI or what that tool's actually doing. The other thing, and I'm just going to point, got to remember, I have a corporate training background, and this used to drive me nuts at the corporate level. The idea that the pricing would change based on active users.
Yeah.
I hate that pricing structure because you're punishing somebody for their own success. If we look at a WordPress example, you know, you get the hosting, you get the tool. So whether it's a CRM tool or a learning tool or a membership tool, you bought the tool and you can put as many people in there as you want. The only change that's going to happen is maybe you need to extend your hosting because you increase your bandwidth. Or if you're sending a lot of emails, you might have to have the next package in SendGrid or Elastic Email or whatever it is that's sending your emails out, your email server. But it's not like a licensed user per user paying every month for the privilege of hosting those user numbers. So when I see that at the bottom of their pricing page, it's an instant turnoff for me.
Yeah. I agree with you there. Well, we come to the end of the road here, folks. Hopefully you got some value from this. I think it's been quite a well-structured episode. I waffled on a little bit in the first half, but not too much. But if you've been listening to these shows, and we're doing quite well with our listener levels, and I get when people, you can go to the WP-Tonic website and book a consultation free with me. And when I do these discussions with people, people have been mentioning the podcast and saying they've been enjoying the guests and the regular people like Kurt that has been helping me on the show. I've been getting a lot of good feedback. And you can book those consultations totally free with me, and we can discuss what's the best solution for you in the world of WordPress. And I just think it's been a great show. So, Kurt, what's the best way for people to find out more about you? And I also think you've got to talk about a little bit about your LinkedIn course. Kurt really is a power user of LinkedIn. And he's very, very active on LinkedIn, and he's done a course, and he's given me some personal consultation, has been helping me with my own LinkedIn outreach, which I've upped a lot more recently. So you got this course as well. So what's the best way generally to get hold of you, Kurt? And what's the best way people can find out more about your LinkedIn course?
The LinkedIn course I put into my website, kurtvonanen.com. So that's in there at kurtvonanen.com. And the reason, Jonathan, that LinkedIn has really attracted me the way that it has is I was an early adopter of lots of social media platforms. You know, I was big on MySpace back in the day. But LinkedIn to me seems to have the biggest, I hate to say ROI or return, but it has the most solid relationships in a B2B marketplace that I've been able to create on any platform. So while I might only have 10,000 connections on LinkedIn, I've had 4,000 one-on-one conversations with people that are on my list. And that's something that doesn't happen in Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, right? So I'm able to physically connect with more people in my network, and that lends to more networking, more communication, and more opportunity. So LinkedIn to me has been a really good key that way. And that's why I created that course. I wanted other people to experience it the way that I have. To reach me, the best way to reach me is that LinkedIn. I'm the only Kurt Von Anen on LinkedIn. So when you find Kurt Von Anen there, you know you got me. Hit the connection link, and then we'll talk in the messenger side of LinkedIn. For business, I'm on Mañana No Mas. So Mañana No Mas, the website, and Mañana No Mas, the podcast.
That's fantastic. And next week, I've got another great guest who's a regular. Got Haroon coming back, and we're going to be discussing everything around marketplaces and how you can build a marketplace with a membership element on WordPress. And we'll be talking about all the options about that. Should be another fab show. We will be back next week, folks. We'll see you soon. Bye.